guys, Cyprian from FEFO, and today let's talk a bit about Code Saturne and how to install it without Salome. So in my previous tutorials where I show you how to do simulation with Salome CFD, well, you have Code Saturne which is directly integrated within Salome CFD. But Salome CFD, sometimes it is not that stable, sometimes the interface doesn't really work like you want. So there are some people who also just install Code Saturne without the Salome CFD. So you can do that, and you can have, for example, Salome 9.3 or another more generalist version of Salome, and then you have Code Saturne installed separately, and you can just match the two without having, I don't know, several Salome installed. So that can be useful. So let's see how to do that in this video, because that's not that easy for someone who never did it. And I had a lot of problems myself at the beginning, so I just wanted to make this quick video to show you. So the first thing is to head up with the codes on the codesaturne.org website, and then you go to the download section. And then you notice that in the download they tell you that first they tell you about the prerequisites, then there are several versions available, and then you can access to the source code. So basically there are three things to know about this. So let's have a look first at the prerequisites, because in some cases it's important. So if you look at that, the only compulsory prerequisite need are compiler for C, C++, and Fortran, and Python interpreter. So you absolutely need to have those compilers and Python. So on Linux, by default, you have those GCC, you have the Gfortran and all of that, and G++. So you have those compilers. Now, if you're not sure if you have them or not, just open a terminal and just type, for example, GCC, which is the compiler for C. And okay, like it tells me that I have fatal error. I didn't give him an input file because I'm not compiling something. I'm just But if I do GCC help, but anyway, it's here. It's here. If it gives me this kind of message, it means I have it installed on my computer. So that's okay. Same for Python. You need to have Python installed. So if you want to check if you have Python or not, just type Python. You'll see the default Python prompt. So I think Code Saturne still works on Python 2.7 or something. I'm not really sure. You should have Python 3 for that. Maybe both are working. I don't know. But I think I got it work with the 2.7 version. Okay, so those are the real prerequisites. Now, if you go down and you see that if you want the graphical interface, so the GUI of Code Saturne, you'll need to install libxml2. So I think this is for the versions which are older than this 5.3. And you need to have Pyqt 4 or 5. So installing Pyqt, I just show you very quickly how to do it, because if you don't know, that's also can be a big hassle. So first you need to have Synaptic. So if you don't have Synaptic, just do a sudo apt get install Synaptic. Okay, you do that, you install Synaptic. I have Synaptic installed, so I just launch Synaptic like that. It requests for my password, so I just open that. And this is basically a graphical package manager, which is quite useful. And then you do a search, and you search for Pyqt. So I think it's pronounced Pyqt or something. But anyway, I like to call it Pyqt. Anyway. So go down and yeah, you see you have Pyqt 5, the dev tools. So you need to have those two, dev and dev tools, installed. And let me check. Yeah, and you need to have this package as well, Python Pyqt 5. Those three, you need to have them. So just check those marks, then reload, then apply to install, and then you have this. So that's the easy way to install Pyqt. Now, if you want to be able to support the MET format and the HDF5 and all of that, well, that's a bit more difficult because you probably have to install HDF5 and MET and probably compile that also. So those are automatically provided into the Salome CFD install. So if you're working with MET files, you'll probably have to install that. If you're not working with MET files as a mesh, but you're working with another format, you may not need that. So up to you to see if you need it. So okay, anyway, this is really quick words about the prerequisite because it's always a confusing issue. Now let's go back to the download page and let's have a talk about versions and the source code. Let's go to the source code first because one of the mistakes I did previously was that you have the full source code here available on GitHub with presentation about how to install it with the install.md, which tells you the way to install Code Saturne. And you have several ways to install it, so that's what is a bit confusing. And if you read this part here very carefully, it tells you that you can either use the traditional way, which is to use configure, make, and make install to basically build the source code, or you can use the semi-pass, semi-automatic install script install saturne.py. So this is the easiest way I found, the install saturne.py, which is really more easy to install. Now the problem with that is that if you download the source code directly from GitHub like that, you do a clone or download the version here, I found out that some of the files required for this install saturne.py are not included. Oh, and by the way, I just saw it's written automatic install at Python 3 by default, so it is using Python 3, sorry, not Python 2.7. That was my mistake. Anyway, okay, so what I was saying is that if you download these files and you try to use this install script, basically it will not work because you'll have to use autoconf to get the configure files and to get various stuff, and basically it's a big mess. So don't do like that. Come back to the download and click on available versions, and you'll see the different versions available, and you have several series. So let's have a look at the latest one, the 6.x, and let's have a look at this one, intermediate version 6.1, and okay, and the link here is the one you have to click to download. So I already downloaded it, so I won't click on that, but they really could make that link more obvious. So if someone from the Code Saturne team is watching that, please make a big button for this because it's so not obvious that you have to click here to download that. Anyway, click on that, you'll get a tar file, so that I put on my desktop here. So this is it. And what I'll do now is that let's compile this. So let's create, let's create a folder into my, let's call that Saturne. Could call it what I want. Let's put it here. Let's extract that. So you can also extract it using the command line. That's the same. Okay, let's enter into this, and you see that first of all you have these Readme. You have Readme.md. I think that's the one which teaches you how to install it. So if you want, you can read that. It's not very easy to understand what's written here. So let me show you how to do that. Basically, the easy way is just to open terminal and and then you just launch this install.saturn.py. And then there are some instructions here that will tell you what you have to do. And they basically tell you that you shouldn't be building that from inside this folder. You have to basically go out of this folder. You have to build and create a new folder called Saturn build, cd into that folder, and launch this script from the other folder. Okay, so let's just do that. Cd ... to go up a folder. Let's just copy paste, right? Copy, and you have to press the center wheel of the mouse to paste. Took me some time to understand that, but okay. So now I got that file, cd Saturn. Okay, and I have nothing in this folder. And now I will launch this script using this. Okay, so I'm basically relaunching the same script, but from this new Saturn build folder. And you see that this time it created a setup file in it. So you have to basically open the setup file, and this will ask you for some options. So download package, yes. Install Code Saturne with debug symbol, no. Install directory, okay. So you can define where this Code Saturne will be installed. Architecture, so by default it recognized that my system is Linux, 64 bytes, so it's okay. In case you don't have so if you have the compilers already installed, it will automatically recognize links. And in case you don't have them, you might not see the links here, the path. So if the path is not here of those compilers, that might mean that your compiler is not installed. If you want to have MPI to use several cores, and which is useful, you need also to have MPI install. Well, that's more difficult to set up, so I won't talk about that here. Okay, my Python interpreter. Now it's not, do you want to disable the graphical user interface? No. So this means basically that it will be installed with the GUI, in which case I will need the Pyqt5 prerequisite, so make sure you have that. So optional Salome platform install pass. So basically there is an option to kind of install this Code Saturne, to build it again with Salome together. So I never quite found how to use this option. So if you put yes, it's not like automatically working and installing Salome with it. That would be too good to be true. I don't know how it works. You should probably have downloaded all the source from Salome and using some tricky way, kind of. Well, I don't know how this works. So we will just build Code Saturne without Salome here. Okay, and then you have the optional packages, which are MED, HDF5. So if, for example, you want to have the MED support, what you have to do is basically to replace yes, yes, and here you put the path to your HDF5 install on your computer. So you need to install and know where the install executable is, and then you put the path to the executable here, and that will do it. So in my case, I will not install that, so I'll just leave it like it is. So I have nothing to change, basically. It's okay. So just close that, and I relaunch this. And now, if you have all the prerequisite and everything is fine, you just have to wait a few minutes until this is complete. So it'll probably take 2 or 3 minutes. So let's just wait. Okay, and when this is finished, this is what you should get. So read well those few lines, because there are a few important stuff here. The first is before you use Code Saturne, you have to update your environment with this variable in order to be able to call Code Saturne from the terminal. So what does this mean? It means basically that if you open a new terminal, now my Code Saturne is installed, right? But if I type Code Saturne, I basically say nothing. It tells me that the program is not installed, and that's because I didn't put it into my path, right? And by the way, that brings me to an interesting stuff, is that if you try that and you get this message, you see that you can install it by typing sudo apt install Code Saturne bin. Don't do that. This is, if you could install it very quickly by doing that, but you'd get a very old version of Code Saturne. I think it's like 4.1 or 4.2 or something. This is not updated from my knowledge. So, you know, you'd have to install and uninstall immediately afterwards. So don't do this. So the right way to get Code Saturne into your terminal after you install it is to put it into your path. So how do you do that? Well, let's have a look at my directory. So in Linux you have some hidden files. So hidden files are the one with dot before them. And you have a file in your main home directory which is called .bashrc. So you have to open that first. So I'm using Emacs, but you can use any type of text. You can use nano if you want, because it's installed basically by default. So Emacs and yeah, so like bashrc. Sorry, I did a small mistake here. Yeah, there is no So let's have a look at first the kind of files I have in my home directory. And if you go up, you see that there's a file called bashrc, right? And there's a dot before the name of this. It means that your file, this file is hidden. So when you this is the file where all the environment variable basically are defined. So a very important file. So let's open that. Bashrc. And by the way, I'm using Emacs, but you can use any text editor that you have. You can use Nano, you can use Vim, you can use anything else. So if you open your bashrc, you'll get something like that. So it looks pretty complex. You don't know what it is, but that's where basically you define the aliases. If you want to create some new commands that will run into your terminal, you have to put those commands here. So I could simply copy that and paste it into this file, but that's not a very good practice. It's better to separate into another file. And if you look at this, it tells you that for alias definitions, you may put it in a separate file called bash aliases. So let's do this. Let's create a file bash aliases, and let's put that code into it. So to create a file, I can directly use Emacs, actually. Emacs dot, and this will be bash underscore aliases. Okay. And when you do that, just copy those two lines here. Copy them one by one. Like that, you will not have some blanks into the stuff. And by the way, copying into Emacs is Control Y. That's just a side notes. Okay, and those will be the Code Saturne aliases. Well, there's only one alias, so call it alias. Okay, and what this does is basically define the path, and this is the path to the executable. So it's important to remember where your actual executable is. So let's have a look to see if my executable is exactly at that path. I think it's interesting to understand what this means. You go into Home, and there is a new Code Saturne folder. There is the folder for this version I just installed, Arch, Linux, and generally executable are into the bin folder, and you find this one, Code Saturne, which is here. And that's it. That's your Code Saturne. So what this is doing is that you define the path to this bin folder, and then you tell, okay, I'd like to put an alias that if I type Code Saturne into my terminal, this will automatically go and find this exact executable which is located within this folder. Okay, so let's save that. And don't forget to close your terminal and open it again, otherwise it will not reload the bash rc file. And now if you type code underscore and you type tab to autocomplete, you should have Code Saturne that pops up, and this means it works. And you click on enter, and you see that you have the functions from the Code Saturne, which means basically it works. It is installed correctly. So now I hope the GUI has been installed correctly. So let's try. And yes, it works. Now I have Code Saturne GUI. It's basically the same which comes with Salome CFD, but except that you don't have Salome CFD here. You just have Code Saturne. So you could create a new project and oh, nice icons, by the way. This is new. Okay, so I hope, oh yeah, this is not totally finished. There is another thing to note. If you continue to read what is written here, it's written first, the documentation is here, very important and very useful comments actually. By just copying this and you put that into your terminal, run that, you have the full Code Saturne documentation that goes on, and you can spend hours to read that, well, if you have the time, but it's actually very well done documentation. The documentation about the physics and everything which is inside is very well done. Well, if you compare with Code Saturne, for example, but okay, I didn't say anything, right? This documentation is done. That's all. Okay, and then it tells you that you need some post-install steps. You might need some post-install steps. So what does it mean? In some cases, if you might need to do a post-install comment. So let's have a look at the link they suggest here. Okay, and this is another link to the installation guide, which, oh, I didn't know they had this installation guide, by the way. So I suppose there are also a lot of stuff which are interesting into it. Anyway, let's go to the post-install section, and then they tell you that once the code is installed, post-install step may be necessary for computing environment using batch system, separate front-end and compute system, for coupling with certess, or simply to call debug build from a main product build. Okay, so not totally sure what this means. If you want to batch system, so I don't know what this is. Separate front-end and compute systems. Well, you can separately install the GUI and the solvers. So I don't think this applies here. For coupling with certess, so certess is the thermal code. So in case you would like to perform like a fluid thermal coupled simulation, you'll have to get certess, and then you have a few more settings to do with Code Saturne, which I think are mentioned. So you need to open this and basically tell Code Saturne where the certess executable is installed. And I think this is into, yeah, this CFG file. So, well, in this case, and this video, I don't really need to do all of that, but, you know, keep it in mind. in case you have this kind of certus installation and you have more complex requirements. And that's it. So this time I'm really done with this video. I hope this was useful and that it's not too much boring. I have been looking for such video for a long time and no one did it basically, so I decided, well, let's take a bit of time in my weekend to make this video and to make sure this is useful for you. So in case it is, please leave a comment, please let me know, and if there's something you'd like to see, well, let me know. I might do a video about it. Thank you very much for watching again.